In today's video, my friends and I are going to talk about social contract theory. We will go back to the 17th and 18th century in order to discover and understand the very dawn and development of the theory of the social contract in modern times. This theory concerns the legitimacy of the authority of the state over its people. We will see how, according to social contract theory, human beings living in what has been called by Thomas Hobbes the state of nature, which is a condition in which there is no sovereign authority and therefore no political order, give their tacit or explicit consent to give up some of their freedom in order to have in exchange protection and ensure the maintenance of a social order. The name social contract comes from the 1762 book by Rousseau, Du contrat social au principe du droit politique. The core of social contract theory, its central assertion, what our philosophers have told us, is that laws and political order are not natural but human creations. In this video, we're going to talk about the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes and his book The Leviathan, the German philosopher Samuel von Pufendorf, the English John Locke, and the French Jean-Jacques Rousseau. But before doing that, let me just give you a brief explanation of the key concept that is the starting point of all theories on social contract. What do we mean by state of nature? Well, the state of nature, it is a pre-political condition, so a condition where there is no sovereign authority, where all human beings are equal. For Hobbes, it was a war of every man against every man, since each individual has a natural right to everything regardless of the interest of others. Pufendorf challenges the Hobbesian thesis of a state of nature which is a state of conflict. He believes the state of nature to be a state of weak and uncertain peace. For Locke, too, it was a condition of relative peace, since every man is endowed with natural rights such as life, liberty and property, and that no one ought to harm one another in life, liberty and possessions. So we can see how in Locke's view there is an absence of mutual obligations even in the state of nature. For Rousseau, the state of nature was a morally peaceful and neutral condition in which individuals act according to their basic urges and their desire to self-preservation. There is for Rousseau too a sense of compassion amongst men in this primitive condition. So let's now have more insights about what Hobbes thought.
Though a figure often painted as reactionary and absolutist, Thomas Hobbes' social contract theory lends much insight into the origin of contemporary values such as rights and the purpose of the state, landing the political philosopher a seat among Enlightenment thinkers of his era. Unlike the theistic and universalism notions employed by philosophers such as Locke, Hobbes does not affirm rights as existing prior to the state, rather beginning at the metaphysical foundations of human thought, desire. Though not necessarily believing it to have existed alone in actuality, Hobbes nonetheless utilizes the egoistic conception of the state of nature as the foundation to the structure of the state, as the simple truth of man that appears prior to any engagement with the wishes of others, when man knows only himself. For Hobbes, the state is but an artificial man, lending his functions to man, the latter just as much created by a variety of parts including the heart, nerves, and joints, which according to Hobbes are the spring, strings, and wheels, respectively. Noting that individuals can just as much be summoned as the encapsulation of multiple parts under a common notion, it is asserted that such individuality and ultimately organic, unified nature must be given to the state structure as well, giving rise to a Leviathan, a larger man which is both mechanical in its many parts, but organic in its unity. Moving on, in regards to the notion which entails the aforementioned Leviathan, Hobbes theorizes of a covenant agreed upon by his functionaries, by which all men are equal by their mere participation in the state organism. In critiquing Aristotle's notions of natural equality, Hobbes states that though society may be divided into multiple classes, some more capable than others, the Greek philosopher errs in thinking as if master and servant were not introduced by the consent of men. Rather, according to Hobbes, each man holds a natural equality also practiced under the state in their ability to consent, and the egoism inherent to the state of nature which causes men to think themselves equal, to even those more able, recognizing their needs as important to themselves and therefore the needs of others as important to others, therefore recognizing through their own selfishness the selfishness of others. Under such a contract, rights are agreed to be given and upheld by the sovereign, who enforces the contract agreed upon by its members and acts as a representative. Such a representative, says Hobbes, whether a monarch, a parliament, a president, and so on, is indistinguishable from the overall population. Any revolt against or attempt to change the contract without the consent of such a representative is a rebellion against one's own covenant with the community, and consequently any punishments deriving from said actions are already consented upon by the receivers of such punishments. Thank you.
Hello. This section of the video will be dedicated to the social contract theory according to the 17th century German philosopher Samuel Pufendorf. Pufendorf believed that society was formed through a mutual agreement among individuals to protect their natural rights. This agreement, known as the social contract, establishes the foundation for a just and orderly society. Pufendorf distinguishes between two types of social contracts: the pactum associationis and the pactum subditionis. The pactum associationis is a voluntary agreement between individuals to form a society based on mutual benefit and cooperation. This type of social contract is based on the idea that individuals come together to protect their rights and interests, creating what he called a persona ficta. On the other hand, the pactum subditionis is a contract between the individuals and the government. In this contract, individuals agree to submit to the authority of the government in the exchange for the protection of their natural rights. This type of social contract is based on the idea that individuals give up some of their individual freedom to live in a peaceful and orderly society. Pufendorf believed that the government's role is to enforce the social contract and protect the natural rights of individuals. The government must be just and fair in the treatment of its citizens, and individuals have the duty to obey the laws established by the government. However, if the government fails to uphold its end of the contract, individuals have the right to dissolve the social contract and establish a new government. This issue, with his view, is that parties interested in the contract hold asymmetric positions. In the first contract, the contract of association, people are free to enter, while in the subjection contract, individual choice doesn't matter, as the people as a whole make the decision. In conclusion, Pufendorf's view of the social contract emphasized the importance of mutual respect and protection of individual rights. The two types of contract, the pactum associationis and the pactum subditionis, highlight the voluntary nature of the agreement between the individual and the government. By upholding this agreement, individuals have a moral obligation to obey the laws established by the government and work towards a just and peaceful society. Thank you.
This section of the presentation will be dedicated to John Locke's contractualism. In his theory of social contract, Locke holds that individuals enter into mutual agreements to form a government to which only some of their rights are surrendered in order to have the remaining rights protected. This type of contract is also known as synallagmatic contract. The term comes from the Greek word synallagma, which means mutual exchange or reciprocal obligation. And in this contractualist context, it refers to a type of agreement in which both parties, people and government, have mutual obligations and benefits. Locke's state of nature is a condition of perfect freedom for men to order their actions, dispose of their possessions and persons as they think fit. All of this happens within the boundaries of the law of nature, without asking leave or depending upon the will of every other man. Furthermore, all men are equal, insofar as equality is intended as mutual jurisdiction, which means that every man can be the executioner of the law of nature, not instead as equality in talent, as nature or God may give more talents to some and less to others. Locke argues that individuals have thus a right to everything, especially their own bodies and the fruits of their labor. in order to achieve, of course, the main goal of survival, for which the necessary rights are life, liberty, health, and, of course, property. However, in this state, conflicts often arise as individuals compete for resources, power, and there is no actual impartial judge to resolve disputes or protect individuals from aggression, as, due to mutual jurisdiction, every victim can be the judge of his perpetrator. This idea is problematic, though, as every judge should be impartial, so that neither feelings or spirit of revenge shall affect the extent and proportionality of the punishment for a given crime. Therefore, people enter into a social contract to establish a government to which has been surrendered the right of man to take justice in his own hands, and that will act as an impartial judge and enforce the laws necessary to protect all of the other rights.
I want to shed light on an influential concept in political philosophy, the social contract theory, as expounded by the great thinker Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau's social contract theory is a profound reflection on the relationship between individuals and the state. He believed that human beings are born free, equal and independent, and it is society that imposes chains upon them. Rousseau sought to explore how society and government could be structures to protect individual freedom and create a just society. According to Rousseau, the social contract theory is an agreement among individuals that establishes basis of a legitimate political order. It is a voluntary contract where individuals surrender some of their natural rights in exchange for the benefits and protections provided by a collective entity, the state. In essence, this contract forms the foundation of a fair and equitable society. For Rousseau, the key element of the social contract theory is the general will. The general will represents the collective desires and aspirations of the entire community, rather than the will of specific individuals or factions. Rousseau argued that decisions made based on the general will are the most just and representative of the common good. In this social contract, individuals transfer their rights and freedoms to the sovereign, which represents the state. However, it is crucial to note that Rousseau believed the sovereign should not be an external authority or a monarch. No, instead, the sovereign should be the collective body of citizens themselves who participate directly in the decision-making process. This direct participation is crucial to ensure that the general will is respected and that no individual or group is oppressed. Rousseau's social contract theory emphasizes the importance of civic virtue and active citizenship. He believed that citizens must participate in the political process, engage in public discourse, and act in the best interest of the community. By doing so, individuals not only uphold the social contract, but also foster a sense of unity and shared responsibility. In conclusion, Rousseau's social contract theory is a powerful framework that emphasizes the importance of individual freedoms, collective decision-making, and active citizenship. It highlights the need for a just society where the general will guides political decisions. By understanding and embracing these principles, we can strive towards creating a society that respects the rights and dignity of every individual.
Here we are again. In conclusion, we see how social contract theory is a doctrine of political legitimacy that was developed at a time in history where the traditional conception of legitimacy given by God to the king was being questioned. Thank you very much for watching.